Running Sentences presents A Spy's Dagger. Part 4. The Estate. Escape is not going to be easy from this island for Dante, and he fears the worst. Still, there's a chance, so he has to find it and get out of there, any way possible. This story is written and narrated by Michael Henry. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within the story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events, and so on is purely coincidental. Copyright 2025, Michael Henry. All rights reserved. Having made his way mostly around the island, Dante had run into little help that would get him off of here. There were a few guards that had turned up, but he had avoided them when he spotted them, and they saw him. Eventually, a loud ringing bell had drawn him back towards the house, and through the gardens to hear someone calling out, "Dinner is served. If you are late, do not expect any food. Service stops in 30 minutes. He saw several people who had been casually strolling about these gardens move towards the house, though a few stayed back, moving to join the others, since his stomach was rumbling, and with hope that the food was better than what had been aboard the ship, he sighed to himself. There was a man who had fallen in lockstep with him. He didn't recognize, but he let that go. You are Mr. Dante, correct?" Dante glanced over to the small man, with a thin reed of a mustache hugging onto his lip for dear life. The heavy perfume made him take a step away from the man to get a bit of fresher air. "I may be that person, sir. You are?" "My name is Singe, and that is all you need to know about me. We do have something in common." "And what is that? You want to get off this island?" "No, I want to get you off the island." Having to stop walking, Dante turned to stare and take a long look at this man, then look him over once again. He questioned if he wasn't some sort of setup to a further trap he was now going to fall into. There was nothing to like about this situation, so he kept on moving towards the house after a second. "Why would you want that?" "As a favor owed to a certain princess, need I say more about this, or do you believe me?" "Forgive me, but you don't come across as a believable type." "Well then, how do I come across to you then?" "How do I come across to you then?" "Like a type of person who would say and do anything if they got paid enough money to look one way and then the other. Then you turn around and get someone else to pay you to turn on the original contract," Dante said dryly. "I would not do that." "Okay, good to know. How and why do you plan to get me off of this island, Mr. Singe?" "You'll have to cool yourself for a little while before I can work my magic, but you'll be off soon enough. As for why, saying I owe the princess isn't enough for you?" He looked doubtfully at the man, who offered a blank look in return. Not what Dante had been hoping to see, since he needed something solid to go on and to trust this person, and he was clearly not that so far. He could go along with it, at least for a little while, to see where it went. That wasn't much of a plan, though, and that would likely lead him into trouble, but so far he had little to go on and to get him out of here. I tell you what. You work your magic, and then when it is figured out and ready, come talk to me about it. Then we can figure out what we should do, okay? I'd much rather have you agree right now. I have nothing to hide from you. And I have everything to lose if this is setting me up for some grand fall. I don't trust you yet, Mr. Singe, and I don't know if I ever will, but doing things my way will help me gain some trust. You will see, even if you don't trust me, that I know what I'm doing." After saying this, Mr. Singe hurried off ahead of him, leaving him listening to the ringing bell and announcing that food would be ending shortly. After having some dinner, Dante chose not to go back to his room right away. Many of the guests had chosen the same thing, moving throughout the house in search of things to do. He was actually rather surprised to find that more guards were stationed inside the home instead of outside, but as an island, it made for a great fortress that would be hard to escape from. Why guard the fools when they'd probably just drown themselves, or maybe they would happily live here? He noted a captain of the guard a few paces behind him who had been following him around for a little bit since he'd come in. In a quiet section away from the rest of the crowd, he turned to face this woman. "Can I help you?" "You are the famed spy, Dante?" "No, I'm not." "You're denying it." "Spies should not be famous, at least until they're dead, then after that history shall decide what they are." "I see. Are you Dante, though?" He looked over this lightly armored woman with a good leather chest piece that would make it hard for anyone to stab her. Her laser-like focus kept her eyes locked with his as he tried to figure out the best way to deal with this. "You would already know an answer to that, wouldn't you? If you don't know who I am, that's on your record-keeping, or the princess's record-keeping, for that matter." A small smile broke out on her face, a very pleasant one, which made him feel uneasy. People who were nice were always doing something to get the better of someone else. "Yes, I do know who you are and what you're doing here." "I think you know that and why everyone else is here." "That is true, yes, but I don't believe that you would harm the princess." "What do you believe me capable of, then?" "Disappearing without a trace. I need to talk to you." He nodded at that. It was something he would do, and probably would cause problems for any person. "I see, that would be a problem, miss." "I am Captain Helen of the Watch, and I've been warned about you." He tried to smile, not too much at that. This could be a game of cat and mouse, and he didn't want to upset the balance already. She would do her best to keep him here, and he would escape eventually. It was the sort of game that many, many people like to play. From the sound of things, it is all bad that you've been told, then. About me, I mean. Perhaps. And then I should be aware that you're keeping a close eye on me? Is that what you're saying? Her smile turned into a little smug thing, and then she shrugged. "Don't vanish if you are, Dante." "And if I'm not?" The captain now had turned and walked away with a wave of her hand goodbye. That probably wasn't going to be their last interaction, at least until he could get out of here, which reminded him he did have a timetable to go check in on that meeting in that town, a thought that made him wonder how much time he had to accomplish just getting off of this island. Probably not long, he figured, and with a hurried step he went towards his bedroom. His roommate had already been asleep by the time he'd gotten to his room, which he was thankful for. No need to listen to any more complaints. Though it was waiting for him, however, when he woke. "Well, did none of the guards say about our room switch, my room switch, to something more private?" Believe it or not, I didn't get a chance to talk about that. There were much more interesting things to talk about other matters, but I'm sure I'll raise the matter again as soon as possible, and when I find them again. "Do it quickly. I don't want to be around rabble like you." For a moment Dante considered uttering the infamous words, "Do you know who I am?" but thought the better of it. Likely it would lead nowhere, and this man, this lord, would scoff at it. "I will when I find them." "You aren't going to do anything, are you? Trying to tell me what I want to hear, then waltz all over me? You're nothing more than a peasant who worked in the castle." "I was much more than that, thank you. I do have land, money, and power. This little move to get rid of me will not work, and I suggest you stop it because, well, nobody likes you." Lord Barnes took a step towards him, but Dante was quicker, pulling out a dagger he had hidden amongst his clothes. It went right to the man's throat, stopping him. "You do not want to cause problems, do you, sir?" I will go to the captain of the guard with this, Mr. Dante. You will not simply walk around putting a blade to an important person's throat, let alone mine. Go, then. Run to them and see what they say. You will not get what you want from them, or anyone here, until they find this assassin. You will pay. The Lord stepped away from the blade, hurrying for the door. We all pay in the end, good and bad. It is a matter of time. Your choices will come back to bite you, Mr. Barnst. The man had left, though, so he wasn't sure if he'd heard him or not. And with a sigh, he tucks his dagger back into its hidden spot, gets dressed, and heads out himself. He wandered about for a bit, looking for something that would help guide him or give him some sort of answer. Or just something to do. The kitchen was one of the first places he found himself, and the servants were busy doing things like getting breakfast ready. Are you going to get in our way, sir? A cook asked as she bustled by. Do you need some help with things? I'm not against helping if you need a hand. Oh, you're going to help? You're one of the lord or dukes or whatever you are? You're going to help? He offered a polite bow to this young maid. I work for the king, but I am no noble. It was a slight truth. He did work for the king, but there was some lineage of royalty, perhaps that died out long ago in his life and in his family. He forgot the exact story of what happened, and honestly, it really barely mattered. Is that the case? Well, I suppose they did round up a whole bunch of people and sent them here. If you're willing to help, I do need some veggies peeled, if you don't mind. No, I'll gladly help you out, miss. If you mind, if I ask you some questions in return, like if you're stuck here with us? Oh, it's no problem by me. I don't know much, and I can't say much, but we shipped here for this job. Can't say I like it now that I've found out there's a killer somewhere amongst the group. You aren't the killer, are you? No, I'm Dante, by the way. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Tina. Most of the staff here go by our first names only. We were told to keep it simple and not to get to know visitors, stayers, prisoners too much. That was certainly an interesting bit of news. Not that it helped him with his task, but things were getting more and growing more complicated here. Any idea why that might be? No, they won't let us leave until the matter is solved, and they won't tell us anything other than to work like usual. We do get paid better, which is nice. Dante nodded along as he peeled some potatoes. Little of this was making sense to him, and it was complex for no good reason. Why go through all of this trouble and tell everyone that they're stuck here? What was going on with all of this? So were you brought here by boat and then just left? He asked. Yes, the head butler then herded us all up here. This was, I think, the day before everybody arrived. We were told that a bunch of guests would be arriving, and that we should treat them well, but, watch ourselves. Looking down at his work of peeling, he had to frown. It looked okay, and probably would not go noticed, but still. Thank you, Tina. I'm not sure I'm being much of help peeling these, but I did my best. Well, you didn't do too badly, but you should get out of here before any of the other staff comes asking questions, and if anyone asks you didn't hear anything from me, I don't want to wind up like you lot. I never heard a word you said. She gave him a bit of a look, which was her way of trying to figure out whether that was an insult of some sort. Having not meant for it to come out across that way, he bowed his head and stepped away from the table. Apologies, I did not mean for it to come across like way. For your sake, I wasn't listening. As he stepped further away, Tina gave a quiet nod of understanding. It was nice to know a bit more, but still, he didn't feel all that confident in getting out of here anytime soon, which would mean failing the king's orders, and that would lead to death, if this wasn't all a trap in the first place. The need to get out of the kitchen and into some fresh air was getting to be a bit much, as he turned towards the nearest exit to find it blocked by an older woman. She took in his appearance with a grimace and raised eyebrows, showing her displeasure at his appearance in this area. You are leaving. I offered a bit of help, but I'm not nearly as good as the staff, so I'm just clogging up space. I'll get out of your way. Yes, you will, Mr. Dante. He paused, looking at her again, offered a smile, and began moving towards the door. A name can mean a lot of things, miss. It is best not to throw them around, especially if you don't know me. Oh, I've heard about you from people around here. Don't think we don't listen to the people whose conversations and lives now dominate ours. Listen, but don't get involved. It's bad for all parties, Miss Maid. And yet you are getting involved in our lives? What do you have to say to that? He offered a sincere grin and moved to get past her, which she now allowed him to do. Breakfast had come and gone, which Dante had actually specifically decided to avoid. Talking to people in the morning was fine and all that, but he didn't feel like any of them would provide any useful information. The garden had been a nice respite from people, but they were now crowding around here and there, not letting a moment go by without trying to make it about themselves. At least the lords and ladies were doing that. Some of the higher-up in the staff were as well, he supposed, but the lower staff kept to themselves, in a little huddled group of safety. He would approach them if given the chance, but right now, he decided not to. It didn't seem the time or the right place. Instead, he concentrated on the guard, who he found walking right towards him, rather stiffly. Mr. Dante, is there something I can do for you? You are Mr. Dante, are you not? That was implied when I asked if I could do something for you, so yes, I am him. Your presence has been requested. Who would be doing such a thing? His mind went to the poisoned princess as the only one who could, but he had only barely ever met or seen her. For her to know him, there was a possibility, a good one at that it was her. Is this some sort of secret situation, or am I allowed to know who wants to see me? Follow me. With that being as much of an answer as he was going to get, Dante did as he was told. The worst that could happen was being led to his death, which at this point he kind of wanted to see. It would be better than being led around by the nose with everyone saying they knew him. They marched from the gardens to the edge of the woods and then into the woods, with the guard leading the way. Not one word passing between them as they found the path that led deeper into this wooded section. It was different from the one that they'd been led up to the land, to the house, and he hadn't found this one in his explorations so far. Excuse me, where are we going? You've been called to a meeting. That's all you need to know and all I've been told. Now shut up and follow. Their little march took them to a clearing where the cabin stood. It was surrounded by trees, then a retinue of guards, and whatever animals and insects that were currently making noise. The guard leading him marched right up to the door where another stood and saluted to them. As ordered, sir. One Mr. Dante. Thank you. Your task is done, and you can return to your duties. With another quick salute, this man who'd been leading him marched off in a new direction. Who are you, sir? Dante asked. Captain George, in charge of the princess's protection. And why would you want me here of all people? Aren't I persona non grata, a suspected killer? By most, yes, but you have orders from the king, don't you? Something is always up with him, and I'd rather like to know what it is. Well, it doesn't concern Princess Abella if that's what you're worried about. What is it about, Mr. Dante? The large captain had taken a few menacing steps towards him, showing off his tight-fitting shirt that looked ready to be done with him wearing it. Dante held back on shaking his head in annoyance. That probably the first thing this man would think to do was go straight to violence, or resort to violence because of that. There were plenty of ways to get what one wanted, and somehow many people jumped to that violent conclusion first. Rebels in a nearby town. There is no nearby town. As I've come to find, yes, there is no nearby town, which means somewhere, someone likely across the water is in a town which I'm supposed to go infiltrate and find out about. A likely story. There was a sigh that Dante was desperately trying to fight off. With his friends, he might be able to get away with sighing. This man, though, seemed only intent on protecting and/or violence in doing his job. I have no interest in your princess. She is not being targeted by me or the kingdom or the king as far as I'm aware, if that is what you are worried about. I was told to watch out for you. So were a lot of people, Mr. Guard. Other people, apparently. But I don't know why you would want that. But as I said, I'm not interested in the princess. She can live her life as she chooses, and I wish that she gets back to health as quickly as possible. The door to the cabin roughly opens, and the princess, a svelte young woman, stands in the doorway. George, what do you think you're doing? My job, your lady. I told you I wanted to see him, not for you to harass him and chase him off. Is this going to make my life more complicated than it already is? And it is good to see you looking good, princess. Shut up, you're not helping things. I rarely do, unless it's in the king's favor. She glowered at him in her absurdly fluffy dress that didn't fit the environment at all. I need your help, Dante. Are you willing to offer it or not? That would depend on what you need. I already have a job from your father, and unless it coincides with that one, it would be hard for me to do. What did my father ask of you? Spy on a town meeting, which shouldn't be too far away, but it's far away. Apparently, it's across the waters and fairly far away. That sounds like something he would do. What did this town people do to draw his ire? Or rather, probably my sister's ire, since she's pretty much running things? Dante paused and wondered how much he should say. It probably wasn't good to keep talking, but there was little to lose at the moment. They were talking about potential changes they could make to their town government, or I don't know. That's as far as I was told. My orders were to go listen and report back in on what was said by them. Well, then you can actually do that, and my job as well, the princess announced. Please tell me what your job is, Princess Isabella. I need you to retrieve a young man named Marcus from the city of Millbrook, which isn't too far from this surrounding area. I'm not actually entirely sure of where I currently am, so I don't know if I can really be a help, Dante said as firmly as he dared. My father told you that you were headed to the Reinholm estate, right? Your sister did, or the guards did. Somebody did, but things weren't exactly made clear of where that was and what was expected of me to get away from here. So you need help getting off this island, and I can help with that. Oddly enough, I've had several offers of help, my lady. What does your offer have that others do not? A secure way off, Dante. Also, any other way likely comes from someone working for me. So, you will be working with me one way or another, or, maybe not, but that's up to you. Gave her a look over, trying to figure out what her name was, and nothing about what she said, and nothing about her said she was lying from what he could read from her expression, from her face. But royals and royalties were never exactly the trustworthy type either. If this whole thing was a trap, or to get rid of him, it was certainly extravagant and bordered on the ridiculous to even try and pull off. This man you're seeking, what is it? What is it about him that you want? He's a former friend of mine who needs to be collected for various matters, the princess said sharply. Why? You don't need to know that, Dante. It was frustrating to hear those sorts of words. He knew he said them often enough and got dirty looks back for them, but he really did wish that this was going to be a simpler matter. I can't help you then. Why not? If the guy has done something to piss you off and is aware of it, and I tell him you're looking for him, how do you think that ends, princess? Oh, I see. Yeah, a complicated situation for all of us, Dante replied. Well, he has no reason to hate me or think ill of him. So he will simply come along if I ask him to? He should, yes, the princess said with a nod yes. Contact me when you have a boat to take me to the shore. I'll see what I can do to put him on a boat back here. But, make it soon. I do have a deadline for all of this. He turned to walk away. You need to return as well once you're done. I mean, back here, Princess Abella ordered. It will look suspicious if I'm gone for long. Yes, there's only so much I can do before the King's Guard decide they don't want to listen to me anymore. Continuing on, he waved his hand in understanding. Making his way back, Dante soon got back to the garden and took in the sight of the many people moving about. They were all keeping busy, and he was just enjoying the sight of it for the moment. It was a life he figured he probably would never have, since living that long seemed like a fantasy for a spy person who generally lived on the edge of danger. He sighed to himself when he spotted the king's poet sitting on a chair, furiously writing away. The two had had a few conversations over the years, most amounting to hello and how are you doing. Now, though, he wondered if the man might have something to say, and headed over towards him. Dante's movements brought up the poet Caleb's head to look at him to see what was going on. Well, if it isn't the sneak. You know my name, Caleb. Yes, I do, but it is fun to tease those around me when I have so little to really do. He was an older man, in his 60s, with graying white hair, and a portly body that had seen better days as he shifted about in his seat in the little desk that had been brought out so that he could write. You did that plenty when you were younger. Oh, yes, I did, but that was ages ago, and friends become fewer and fewer and far between. All I have these days is telling the king dirty jokes and writing down an occasional poem to keep him happy. And yet you're drawn into this mess? Dante asked him. Wrong place at the right time. I should be heading out for my retirement, but alas, and what of you? A job request, as you know, happens. Yes, one never really escapes the grasp of the royals, though they give you everything, so perhaps you don't want to escape them, do you? There are days when I wish I could, and there are days when I wish I couldn't. You wouldn't happen to know a way off this island, would you? No, why? Forgive me, actually, that's probably part of the job, isn't it? And something I don't want to know. It is. You were always Abella's favorite, though, weren't you? Is that why you're here? I don't buy you being arrested with the rest of these people, Dante pointed out. The man feigned a hurt look, but a smile kept creeping across his face. Well, she's a good girl for the most part. You haven't seen her, have you? Want to poison her? The jovial, teasing expression on the poet's face dropped to one of horror and fear. He was shaking his head no and trying to utter a few words that were not coming out. Or they were, but they were slight. I would... She'll see you when she sees you. I'm sure she will call for you soon. And she's well. If you'll excuse me. Not recovering from the sudden accusation, the poet had gone terribly pale and looked about. A few guards and the others milled about, but none of them were paying any attention to either of them. Yes, please go. I will. Don't worry much. You're not actually suspected by anyone, other than maybe me. He knew it wasn't good to be stirring up trouble, not against a man who probably had nothing to do with things. There were a lot of people who were trying to do things to him, which he would not stand for. Dante? Yes, what do you want, Mr. Caleb? He turned to see the old poet had regained some of his usual look, and had stood up and taken a few steps over towards them. You should actually be careful as well. Oh, I know. Everyone hates a spy and thinks that I'm looking into what they're doing. It is rarely ever the case, though, Dante said. But that's not what I'm talking about. Things are strange around here. The reasonings for everything is off. Tell me something I don't know. You seem to have an idea that you can act on now, so what's causing all of these headaches that you see? After all, apparently I'm here to fix everyone's problems. Caleb grabbed his arm and pulled him off the side of the garden, near some bushes and further away from everybody. Ever since the Queen died, everyone around the royal family has been acting weird. That's been years, a decade almost. Everyone just has their way of grieving. When the king grieved the death of his mother, it was by taking over nearby Counter. He's done none of that for the Queen. With a grimace, Dante nodded along. It was true that the king tended to do that kind of thing when upset at the world, taking it out on fellow lands. So what are you suggesting then, Caleb? That something is happening. I don't know what yet, and I probably don't want to know, but it feels like a whirlwind is about to break out and throw everything into chaos. The poisoning is planned or something more nefarious? The poet was nodding yes. You know royals as well as I do. They're always up to something and trying to get the better of someone else. But it also feels like, maybe something more? Yes. But without evidence of such things, I cannot know who is attacking, and from where, there's nothing I can really do, or anyone can do. I think you know well enough that you are already on alert from all that's happened. Just watch yourself, Mr. Dante. Feeling his frustration growing, and Dante could tell that the man obviously didn't consider that answer wrong, but repeating himself didn't help either. What's going to do with the rest of these news? What was he supposed to do with this sort of news to watch out for himself? I always do, Mr. Poet. Yes, be extra careful. The poet now hurried back off towards his little desk and chair, leaving Dante more confused than ever about what he'd gotten himself involved in. End of part 4 of A Spy's Dagger. Thank you for listening.